So there are two things you need to know in order to understand this story. One of them is that I am pretty cold all the time. A lot of the times, there's a word in Spanish that we use, especially here in Chile, called friolento or friolenta to describe someone who is very susceptible to feeling cold. And then you take that's a description of me, and then you take that and you multiply it by 10, because part of my symptoms with the health issues that I've been struggling is that my body can't keep warm. And so when, just as soon as like summer starts turning into autumn here in Chile, which is not so extreme in terms of weather, at least not as Canada or some parts of the United States is, but still, as soon as autumn starts coming in, cold starts being a thing for me and my family. And so I start wrapping myself in blankets and, always having a hot water bag with me. And so that's one of the things that I am pretty susceptible to the cold. And the other thing that you need to know is that my husband has been using my credit cards. We decided some time ago to just start using just my account so that we were going to be more organized. And then I gave him a couple of my credit cards so that he could do the shopping and stuff like that. So we were talking about how to spend some money that we had, and my husband was suggesting to me that I should buy one of those things you put on your bed that, I don't know how they're called, but they're like warm up your bed electronically. We call them in Spanish calientacamas, like a bed warmer. Okay, so I wouldn't be surprised if that was the name in English, bed warmers. And then that was sometime in the afternoon. And then it was like the end of the month, so I was checking my bank account. And I was like paying off my credit cards as I always do. And suddenly I noticed this one credit card is like maxed out. And it's a credit card that doesn't have a huge limit. It has like a $2,000 limit, but still it was maxed out. And I said, that's really weird. Like, I barely use this credit card. I think it was one of the ones my husband was using. I said, did you max out this credit card? Like, what did you spend $2,000 in, He's like, that's super strange. That's not something I did. And so I started looking into it, right? Right away, you start realizing when those things happen, how you start getting anxious. Things start happening in your body, right? Money is such a thing for us. And it turns out, I opened up my account and I opened up the statements, and it turns out that there were a bunch of weird things going on, a bunch of like little shopping done in different, what do you call these, where you go get your gasoline. People buying in those different places. And it's not a coincidence, because in Chile we know that a lot of the kind of fraud happens, the credit card fraud happens when you go and give your credit card or swipe your credit card when you're getting gas. It's known that a lot of the times in those places, some people have like some kind of machine that will clone your credit card, and I've heard this happen before. It's never happened to me, but I started seeing all these like little charges in different gasoline stations all around the city, and like some like 2 hours away on the same day. So right away I knew there was something wrong. So I called the bank, and they said, okay, there's like about $1,500 spent in these gas stations in 9 installments each. I was like, that's not mine. I haven't I never pay in installments. I always pay up front. So she's like, okay, we're going to do this. I luckily had like an insurance for these kinds of things. I told the lady, please tell me I have an insurance. And she said, she was from Venezuela, and she's like, we have this saying in Venezuela. And she said, it's better to have something and to never need it than to need something and not have it. And it turns out I did have the insurance. So that's good. But after this whole thing happened, I was left a little shaky. And with my husband, we were talking about how something like that, even the question of like, hey, babe, did you spend all this money? That's weird. look at this credit card, it's filled up. Just that kind of like, that sentence, that question, it shifted our reality. It shifted our emotional and our state of being in general. And we felt how our body started reacting, right? And then after it had passed, and like after the bank says, don't worry, you know, it's going to be okay, or at least you think, you say, okay, it's like 5 days until this is resolved, but this is probably going to be okay. Even when that has passed, there's still like this energetic lingering of things in your body. And it's, I think, a very good practice to just start observing that. I remember the second that I realized, even before jumping into my account and then seeing that it was a fraud, just thinking that we had actually spent that money and kind of getting nervous about it. And then I remember thinking, this is a test. Or I remember thinking, observe how something that is basically an illusion, right? Just credit card money is allowing you to get out of that balanced state. So I think it's always good to be observing that and the way that we are responding to these things, and then being the consciousness behind whatever is happening in that physical reality with our bodies. So here's where the cold and the bed warmer stuff comes in. So we were kind of joking around after this whole thing happened. And then my husband said something like, maybe they used the money to buy bed warmers. And actually it was a very special moment because I laughed. And right after that moment, I felt like that sentence, it was spoken for a reason. And that sentence shifted my state of being from a point of victimhood, of look what happened to me, into a state of, you know, these people that are doing this, they're still people just like me. And they need things just like me, and they probably need bed warmers more than I do, even though I really need bed warmers. But yeah, I'm getting emotional. I guess that's a sign that this is a message worth sharing. But it really did a good job in shifting me from this place of look what happened to me, and then even like placing blame on other people for what they did, right? Because you say, who does this? Like, being robbed is one of the hardest feelings we were talking about with my husband. But it shifted me into realizing that whatever has caused these people to act in this way, where they're stealing from other people and they're spending their energy literally going into other people's property and space and stealing it. It has come from a place of fear. It has come from a place of needing something and not having it. And it doesn't like justify it. I'm not talking about a process of justifying another person's wrongdoing. I'm just talking about that shift that happened that was so valuable to me. And I feel like it happened because I've been in this place all month long of trying to shift into this love frequency. And it really just caused me to say, you know what? I wish for these people that they will be okay. I wish that they will have a warm bed to sleep at night. I wish that, you know, that what they're doing doesn't cause them a lot of hardship in their inner worlds. I just naturally started wishing nice things for these people. And there's one thing I wanted to say here. Firstly, I think that it was an easy kind of scenario because you just call the bank and it's like almost done because of the insurance. I feel like if you were robbed and like your things didn't come back, it might be harder to get into that stage. I'm not saying that it's easy to get into that space of compassion. But I am saying that I received a message last night when this happened, that this is where we need to be moving our energies, and that it's not about the judgment, it's not about blaming others for what happens to us. It's about the different opportunities that we have in our lives to be able to come back around into compassion and into realizing that we're all acting from the same space, that we all sometimes act from fear, and that we all go through these things in this life that, we're all trying to figure out the best things for our own selves, and a lot of us get lost in the way. But in the end, we're all connected by our experience of humanness and how hard it can be sometimes. So, just a little inspiration for turning any suffering caused by another person, by an exterior person, into compassion. And what it does is dissolving that suffering a little bit. That's what I want to end with, is when you can turn that into compassion, it kind of dissolves that victim mentality about what happened to you. And with that, the suffering dissolves, at least much quicker than it would have if you would have clinged to, the drama of the whole situation.